Greetings, metalheads. Welcome to the Friday 13th YouTube channel. Hope you're doing well. So, today you're going to be watching an exclusive interview with Craig from Forbidden. Now, you may know Bay Area Thrashers have recently just reformed with Chris Contos on drums, former Machine Head. So, this is going to be a really cool, interesting interview. So, check it out, folks. Please share on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social sites. So, thanks for watching. Thanks to the band Forbidden. You guys rock as well. Take care. Thanks for watching, metalheads.
Look at that awesome background.
Well, that's a bit there, man. Even the t-shirt. How are you doing?
Doing great, man.
It's been a long time. I guess you obviously you know who I am because we met back in the 80s in Bradford on the Sacred Right
Right,
tour many, many
right.
years ago. What year was that? Was that 89?
89 with Sacred Reich. Yeah, yeah. I was I remember I was 19 at that time and I didn't turn 20 until we came back to the States because I remember that was upstate New York somewhere the night of my birthday. So I was like I always remember this shit and I don't really remember all that clearly because I was a drinking bastard back then. But yeah, I do remember,
I mean,
foggy.
yeah, we met again on the Twisted Into Form tour in Bradford, but you cut your hand that night. Do you remember?
Oh, no, that was Nottingham.
No, it was Bradford. Well, in Bradford, he was bleeding on stage because Russ said to you, "Be careful, Craig. You had your all hadn't all bandaged up."
Yeah, I think I did it the night before in Nottingham, and it was fucking. I mean, I lost a lot of blood that night, and I
Yeah.
had to finish the tour like that, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right then, Craig. Well, thank you for joining me on for Friday 13th YouTube channel. So, how's your day been so far?
Actually, this is my first interview. I just took care of a bunch of business. Every day is something. There's a lot of things going on, obviously. Uh, Many different things happening behind the scenes just to get us ready for all the next few months and into the upcoming year.
Right. Congratulations on reformation anyway.
Yeah, we call it a re-bloody birthing. But yeah, yeah, it's I didn't see it coming, man. I keep saying it, and it's true. I really didn't want to do it unless Russ was doing it, and then just things happened, and one thing after the other, and finally you just got to go, okay, like okay, it made sense.
Okay, then so I'm going to ask you a couple of warm-up questions first, Craig. As a guitar player,
Oh, warming up.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah, well,
warming
yeah,
up.
yeah,
What do you got?
yeah. So, as a guitar player, who inspired you to become a guitarist? Because I never asked you this back in the 80s and 90s.
Uh, I guess I was always like music to me, being from a non-musical family like mine was. My dad was a history professor, and my mom was like involved in like social activism and women's rights and shit like that. And my brother was like a brainiac. So I kind of I was adopted into this family of really smart people, and music was my savior. It was what I liked. And honestly, I didn't play guitar till I was 14 because we couldn't afford one. We moved to the Bay Area and I got my first guitar. But the stuff I really liked, you know, I was a Beatles fan growing up, and it wasn't necessarily guitar that of the Beatles that pulled it together. But I guess the first, you know, really like guitar driven things, your obvious stuff like your Judas Priest and I was really into Rush. Before I even really heard much Priest, I was into Rush and AC/DC and stuff like that. And the Cars. I always liked the Cars. Elliot Easton is actually a real big influence on me. And even my solos, in a weird way where if you know me, you know that I like to write my solos so they're more melodic and more like another melody, a sing along part. I got guys that can do a gazillion notes always next to me, So I'm just like the guy who'd rather write the orchestrated melodic solo. So Elliot Easton would be one for sure.
Uh,
And
so,
and then you're all your normal guys, Glenn Tipton and you know Adrian Smith and Dave Murray and all these guys.
all right, then. So, what guitars do you play now? Have you played this? Because I think you used to play Ibanez, didn't you, at one point? Was that
Well, God, yeah, that was. I haven't played Ibanez since 1990. I went switched from Ibanez to Robin, and then when Forbidden ended, I got my first Les Paul, and then I played nothing but Les Pauls for years, and I still have a couple of my main Les Pauls still left. But then I switched to Dean, uh, kind of full on in about 2000. 2010, 2011. I mean, for the reformation of Forbidden, it's been Dean ever since. That's all I really play. But then I was using Les Pauls at the same time for my other band too. So yeah, I went to Les Pauls from him. He got about 1998 until about 2004, and that was that whole experience. And then yeah, then it was Spiral Arms after that, and it was Les Pauls all the way through there up until 2008 when we did our first reformations with Forbidden.
Okay, then. So your first album is a cult classic, without a doubt. Forbidden Evil. It's not. It's not. I mean, I love everything that Forbidden's done, but that is a cult classic. You've got to agree with me on that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
do. No, I think at this point, Forbidden is a cult classic. I mean, I've got no like any kind of I know right where we stand. And it's an interesting place to stand because you know people kind of like forgotten, and then it gets re-dug up again, and then they get excited about it, and then it's cyclical, and it seems like the band has more gravity now than we had, definitely than we had at the end of the last run. It's really bizarre to me, but I mean, I take it for whatever it is. And, Forbidden Evil is an absolute cult classic, and I'm glad that we qualify for that. That's cool.
There's not one bad song on the album whatsoever. You can play it all the way through, and it's just like just shreds. I mean, Russell's vocals are amazing, like Rob Halford in a thrash band, pretty much.
Yeah, he did all those in one day. He just went in there and boarded them out. That's how much talent Russ has.
So what do you think about the second album, Twisted into Form? Because that's the tour I saw you with Vicious Rumors and Death Angel.
Oh, it's a far more mature record, but it doesn't have the. I mean, first albums have the thing to them that they always do. Like kill them all, killing is my business. Show no mercy. You go down the line. First albums just have that energy that some people will just always like refer to. So, well, they're never going to be like that again. Of course they're not. Bands grow. They start to flourish, and either they grow into a good way or grow in a bad way. So, Twisted and Form was a big step up, and it's actually sold more copies than Forbidden Evil. But yeah, it's just we did it really fast. We came home from tour by August of '89, and then we were in the studio by January of 1990 recording that record. And then it was out in April. I mean, that was such a fast turnaround back in the days when they wanted you to just do things real quick.
It's a shame that you didn't do anything for a while after that, because when you changed guitar players, Glenn left and you got Tim in the band, God
Well,
rest his soul. And
yes, no, well, we got Tim in the band for Twisted into Form, so he
yeah,
was there for
yeah,
all that. And
yeah.
no, it's hey man, you could put us in a big stack of other bands that got left by the music industry by the side of the road, and that's okay. Like looking back at it now, I don't really have much. I'm not really frustrated about it. Like other people get really jaded about that. I'm like, hey, some other music came upon the world that was really good. Thrash metal just didn't quite have the same,
Okay.
bite to the collective consciousness at that moment. So you just kind of gotta just look back at it like it's all cyclical, it's all changing. But
I
yeah, we
mean,
had about 4 years where we were trying to find 3 years actually it took us, what seemed like, Jason, it seemed like when you're a kid forever. Like, oh my God, when is this gonna end? And now you look back, it's like 3 years. Like Metallica's putting an album out every 5 or 6. Like it's just you know it was the turn of the music then.
okay, yeah. So it's just a shame that you did all that time of like not being able to do anything. Probably getting frustrated as well wouldn't have helped, would it? Being frustrated.
Well, I wouldn't say we weren't doing anything. We were doing a lot, and we were playing a lot locally and taking it out on the road. You know, we did things, and then then I got the Death gig, and I played guitar with them in Europe in the end of '93, and that was where we were handing out the demos, the Distortion demos, which ended up getting us signed.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
seeing you on that tour in Bradford with on the Death tour. You actually gave me one of the demos there for Distortion, which I still own.
yeah, that was the first show of the whole tour.
I mean, how was it for you
You know,
being with Death? I mean, how did you feel playing on that tour?
I felt great. But I literally had no time to learn anything before the tour because I was recording that demo till the day before they showed up.
Wow.
Uh, it all happened so fast, and then Chuck, because I said I couldn't do it, I was too busy. he decided to move the entire band to the Bay Area to rehearse, which was wild. And then we did, and then my whole thing was, I don't know these songs, dude. Are you sure? And he's like, I'll teach them to you. He goes, I'll teach you, Rip. You learn it. We'll play it. Do it 4 times. And then I learned the whole death uh, language. I mean, they had a formula, and it's funny. I say this, and people like once in a while, someone will get super upset, like I think it's a diss, and it's not a diss. But the death material is considerably easier to play than the forbidden stuff. So luckily, I could learn a riff real fast and then circulate it, and then we learned the whole set in 2 days, and I was playing it by the third day. But
Wow.
it's funny because people get offended, like, "What do you mean it's easier?" It's like, listen, man, Chuck was a genius. He could make things sound really complex, but
Yeah.
it's relatively easy to play because he was smart. He had to play guitar and do it at the same time. And with Forbidden, we just ended up making things that were stupid hard to play, and no one can play them right to this day. I've never seen anyone nail one of our songs in a video 100%. And even Warbringer, they came to me and said, "Can you please teach us how to do these parts? Show me a video." Or so I got on when they played with Skinner and did the thing with Skinner. I gave them pointers on how to get through Chalice of Blood because this shit is hard to play. So it's just the way it is.
I mean, I've got photos of you from Bradford in 1989, 1990, and also the Death Tour. If you ever want them sending over, just let me know and I'll dig some up for you and send them by
I would
email.
love those.
Wow. So, I mean, you came back in 1984, you did Distortion, then you did Green with Gun Records. How did that deal come about?
Yeah, both those albums are on Gun, and those came about because we handed that demo out, and they got a hold of us, and they were willing to take that chance on a thrash band when no one else was. I mean, we were not the only thrash band. Let's just be clear about this. There were so few thrash bands that survived that time, and everyone either disbanded or was on hiatus. You know, Even Exodus, Testament kept punching through, but they were talking about changing their name and completely changing their style. Like everybody, Death Angel turned into uh, the organization and then the Swarm. Like none of us were around. So this is not some big mystery of what happened to Forbidden. We were just one of the many bands. Only like Slayer and Anthrax, they changed to John Bush. It's just very few bands out of that era went unscathed, and nobody did actually. Sepultura was, they were new. They came up, and Pantera was new, and they came up, and then death metal was all that was kind of doing well under the surface. It's just a sign of the times.
So, when you look back at the Distortion and Green album, do you have a favorite of those two?
No, I don't actually. I think they both serve different purposes completely. I think Distortion was the bridge between Twisted and Inform in all those years. And I think we had written so many songs. We just chose those ones. We had so many things we wrote. And we wrote a lot of really melancholy stuff. Like, there's those demos. People like to talk about The Trapped, So Dark, and My Sorrow's My Own. I mean, that stuff is like depressing, but they're like, "Oh, it's so great." I'm like, "Yeah, it was cool, but we were not in a great headspace at that point. We kind of punched our way out, and the Distortion was a much more uh, energetic and aggressive offering, And then Green was a kind of our answer to after 2 full tours. We did or three actually. We did one full one in Europe with Gorefest, and then it was all on Distortion, and then we did one with Testament, and then we came around with Malevolent Creation. And the world was like the climate was just not positive for thrash metal. You'd have an occasional good show, and a lot of places didn't promote, didn't care, So I think our answer to that was "fuck you," and that's what Green was just simply like. I call it like our caveman album. Like a big club came out, we just went oh oh oh. It was started batting our heads, like it was cool. I just listening to it yesterday for the first time in a long time, and as I was working out, and I was like, "Fuck, this is so pissed off." It's such an angry record. So I like
Yeah.
them both, but they're way different. And there's no record like Green. Like Green was probably about 2 or 3 years ahead of its time. And then a lot of bands came up sounding like that, like a lot. Like Slipknot was partially born out of. And Joey Jordison told me so. He's like Green was like one of my main influences writing these songs. I'm like, and then when he said that, I was like, Oh fuck. I totally hear it in the early Slipknot shit. Like I never put that together until he said that. It just didn't even it flew completely right by me.
Okay, and then you did 13 years later, you came back on Nuclear Blast Records with Amiga Wave. I mean, that must have been a fantastic deal getting a sound to Nuclear Blast back then.
Yeah, actually it was not 13 years. It was well, I guess no, you're right. It was 13 years. It was 13 years. You're correct. And yeah, no, it's the great place to be, you know. And our headspace for that record was we were in it, you know, and the way I went into writing that record was I wanted to make the most fucking metal statement I could possibly make after all those years. You know, and there's a lot of enthusiasm and fire and really cool lyrics and Rusted amazing in the studio. It was like I felt like it was the best overall performance he ever did in his life in a studio. He was just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you on that tour at Bloodstock Festival. You came and played Bloodstock for that album, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah, how was that for you playing Bloodstock? That was your first time, I believe, for
Yeah, it
Forbidden.
was fun. It was really fun. They didn't have a good amp for me though. I was a little bummed. Like their amps that they had, I was like, this doesn't sound good. But then you just got to plug on through, you know. But it was a little messy, a little gritty. That was a
Okay,
bummer.
that's so. I mean,
But it
you
was
say
still a great festival. I loved it, and my unfortunately, I was my one of my biggest takeaways was after the show. That was when Mark Hernandez quit the band and said he couldn't do our European tour because he had family things going on, and he just everything fell apart right there for our headlining European tour. And so my memory is like, what a great show, what a shitty after show. You know, it was kind of a bummer. And then we had a show the next night in Czechoslovakia, Brutal Assault, which was another great show, but it was still weird because Mark was leaving.
oh, right. And then, so what's brought the formation back for you guys? Is it the fans asking for you? Is this the reason why you've come back now? Is it a
Nope,
fan base?
nope, nothing to do with the fans. That's a
Right.
bonus. You know, it's not. We're not desperate, dude. I am so not desperate. I do not. I don't mind if I go for the rest of my life and I don't. You know, it's not like the most popular thing. You know, like as we said earlier, Forbidden is a cult band. I know right where we stand.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have any you know delusions of grandeur about this or anything of the sort. So uh, I will tell you the success that brought us here,
Right.
and it started with the Bay Area International shows. And we were getting ready for the European one, and we didn't have a singer here to do any of the songs because we were going to use Randy from Lamb of God, Caton from Hyrax, Mark Alcegueda, and then Will Carroll was going to sing a song too from Death Angel. He was going to do the Slayer song. So they're all either out of town or on tour. So there's nobody. And Chris Contos, who was playing that with us and not in Forbidden, um, suggested Norman Skinner, who's a like a super singer out here in the Bay Area, who has his own little career in solo works and working with the Magica and more power metal stuff. But he's
Yeah, I know those
phenomenal.
guys. Yeah, I know Steve
Yeah,
Rice.
yeah. Just a great singer who I'd never, you know. I said, oh yeah, he can sing this stuff. So I called him up and asked him, hey, can you do these songs? We're doing like Exodus, Metallica, Death Angel, Forbidden, and Violence, you know. And he learned all of them. And but the deal with Bay Area Thrashel is nobody plays their own song. So, like in other words, Death Angel sits there and watches us play their song, and vice versa, and that's
Yeah.
how it works. Like everyone has to learn the other guy's material, and that's what makes it cool.
That must have
Otherwise, it's
been
just
very interesting then.
yeah, it's really interesting. So what happened was I was just standing there and I was like, oh, we might as well go through this Forbidden song since you're here. And then we went through Off the Edge. And as it started, I realized I'm like, why are we doing this? Not one of these guys is going to play it. You know, I was like, all right, let's start with the bass. So I just kept going. And then Norman comes in to sing it. And I was like, I just, holy fuck. You know, like he sounds fucking amazing. It sounds like Russ, but like older, younger, enthusiastic, completely fucking on fire Russ. I was like, whoa. And then the door opens and the other guys are all in the hallway and Chris Contos opens the door because it's Mark Hernandez with us at that time because he was part of the International thing too. And that was the Omega Wave lineup standing right there. So we're all there except for Russ. and this fucking dude just blows it open, and the door opens, and Chris just looks in. He's like, oh, and then Harold goes behind him, and he's just all, and then they close the door. I was like, yeah, okay, that was cool. I hear it, you know, and I didn't think much of it, but I did say, you know, it's not lost on me that that sounded fucking great. Moving on, still had no intention. So we did Europe. Everything's great. We come back. We got to get ready for the Bay Area version of the show, and I was going to do like 30 something songs, and I had like 30 something players. And the Forbidden song, I wanted to have the guys in Warbringer play the music, and then Norman sing it. I figured that'd be a good opportunity for him to actually do a Forbidden song. Forbidden was his favorite thrash metal band. It's his first thrash metal concert. Russ used to point at him and say, "Little Russ," you know, like a blonde haired version. He's not red hair, but you know, before Russ even knew he was a singer. And then we played with a Magica and Skinner on a couple of occasions over the years. So all this like symmetry. And the guys in Warbringer show up the day before to the big rehearsal place, SIR here in San Francisco, and they play Chalice of Blood with Norman. And I'm in the room watching, like, oh, this will be fun. And then he starts, and I'm like, oh shit. And then there's like 20 people in the room, and they all just turn around and look at me like, I'm like, yeah, I hear it. You know, I hear it. The guy is doing shit that only Russ really has ever. You got to have that power, you know? And I was like, holy fuck, he sounds fucking great singing this stuff. You know, definitely more thrashy when the approach of, he's trying to, you know, do Russ justice. But even then, so then the show happens the next day. They play it. The crowd does the same thing. They're all looking at me like, "Are you seeing this?" Because I'm on the side of the stage, standing there. I was helping them sing background vocals. You know, the Chalice of Blood parts. So I was just first of all, fucking Warbringer was great playing it. You know, we went over some stuff. Like I said, I showed them a couple things, but they fucking nailed it. They're super talented. Carlos is a great drummer. Everyone in that band is super badass. So that was killer. And then he comes in and starts singing it. And I was like, once again. So still, even then, Jason, I still didn't accept it because I just never thought it would happen. And then, you know, it's really weird. The universe works in strange ways. And this is how it all really came about. I was having, you know, my band Dressed to Dead was having some internal shit going on, and I was just really just like, come on, man, you know, I had a whole plan for this year, and I was getting really frustrated. And then, you know, one day I get an email out of the blue after kind of we decided to take a little break. Like literally like 4 days after I decided to just like, okay, I'm just going to put this new music out for Dressed to Dead and not worry about like anything for a little bit. Just put this. So there's a plan for the band to still put new music out, but about 4 days later, I woke up to an email from Alcatraz Festival saying, and this is, I'm kind of like paraphrasing, uh, would Forbidden be interested? I'm taking a big chance here by asking this is how it started. Would Forbidden be interested in doing a 35th anniversary show at this year's Alcatraz Festival, taking the place of Anthrax? And would it be possible to do it with another singer since Russ is not in good health or singing anymore, and Chris Contos on drums because he would bring a great story? That's exactly paraphrased what I got. And I was sitting right here looking at my computer, and I just went back like this. Called my manager, said, "Listen, man, the universe is speaking. We finally have an opportunity to do something that actually makes sense. Uh, it's a fucking one-time shot. See what happens." Didn't have a drummer in place because Mark had quit the band the first time in 2011. I just was like, obviously Norman's the guy, and we got to, you know, figure this out. So I called up Matt. He's like, I was waiting for this phone call. Called up Steve. He's like, yeah, dude, I've been waiting for this phone call. They called up Norman, and like half a second later, he's all, yep. And then I was like, okay, figure out the drummer. So I made a bunch of calls, called a bunch of people, talked to Chris Contos, told him that it probably might not be a good idea since we already playing the Boneless ones together. Maybe we shouldn't push it, you know. But he had a bunch of suggestions for drummers. Um, it's funny because he was giving me suggestions for guys, and there's like the same dudes I was thinking about. I talked to everyone. Everyone was into it. Every drummer. I'm not going to mention all their names, but they're all very well established, pretty great drummers. But they none of them lived here in the Bay Area. And then I said, Chris, before I, pull the trigger, I'm going to ask you once more. Is this something we should explore? Because are you going to be upset as you look at me doing this, like thing with Forbidden again, playing these festivals and getting these great opportunities and writing a fucking great record? Should we be doing this together or not? And then that's when he's like, okay, I'll fucking do it. And I'm glad he said yes, because I love playing with Chris. Uh, his work on Burn My Eyes is what most people will refer to, but he does great everything. And working with him, the Boneless ones have been great. I've been really good friends with him for almost 35 years. And he deserves this break to be put in a position to write a very cutting edge, thrash record that'll make its mark. So I'm excited. I think the lineup is great. Um, there's just enough new blood, but there's me and Matt Camacho from the original. Steve was with us from 2009 until we ended. So it's like, people, and I'm going on a long time. People have their own thoughts about the way things should go, and they have their own version of what they think it should be. And people love to tell you what you should be doing, but at the end of the day, you have to have people that are all moving together in the same direction. It's like having a fist. You can't have any fingers that hang out, or you're going to break your fucking fingers. I feel like Forbidden was constantly not ever full fist in the last inception of the band, and because other shit was going on in people's lives. Russ had his alcohol bout, and Mark had his alcohol bout, and that was essentially why Mark ended up leaving the first time. And he's sober now. So they're both doing good. They're both sober, but it needed to be different.
Yeah,
It
right.
couldn't have been. It couldn't have been with them. And there's no one in the world fits this band better than Norman.
Right then,
Like he's the guy. He's the perfect guy.
I was just gonna say a title for the new album, Twisted by Blood.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, first two albums, mixed together. So, I mean, how many new songs, Craig, have you got written for the new album?
No, none.
None.
Not a one.
But you've got
I,
ideas.
I got hell of ideas. What I did do is I started writing lyrics, and I'm going to take a little different approach to this record, Jason. I'm gonna actually come up with the majority of my concepts and paint the picture with the music afterwards. I might not write all the lyrics, but I'll have choruses and things worked out in my head. And this is my brain works this way. I can if I don't get knocked in the head really hard, I'm going to remember all this stuff. And I've been writing lyrics down on the computer. So they're documented, and I have concepts, and I have riff ideas, and I have the direction I want it to go in very clearly in my head. And it should lean more into thrash, and it should also be tuned mostly into the key of E that we wrote the first two albums. I think we'll make some variety, but I really want to. Everyone's afraid to write an album in E anymore because it sounds so heavy, tuned down. But I'm like, that's cool. We'll do a few songs like that, but I really want to write a lot of them in E and get that bounce, that old school bounce to the
Right.
record.
Do you think it's going to have elements of the first two albums? Are you thinking of something along those with a fresh approach? Are you thinking of that sort of idea for the next
I think
album?
you answered your own question with the question. I think that's it.
Good,
Yeah.
that's what I want to hear, man. So how many gigs are you doing? Because you're doing Alcatraz, aren't you? That's in Belgium. What other gigs are you doing this year, if any?
The only one that we have announced is the one in Belgium. We'll probably do a warm up show in Belgium a couple days before that at a small club. Uh, and I can neither confirm or deny any other plans for the end of the year.
Right then. So any labels showing it? You must have a hell of a lot of labels. Are you still obliged to be with Nuclear Blast, or is that just a one-off deal?
No, I'm still signed to Nuclear Blast, and they want it. So I don't see a better label out there for Forbidden to go. As long as we can come to an agreement, we'll stay right there.
So how many? I was going to say, what band would you like to tour with if you had the opportunity, within reason?
Oh, dude. Well, first thing everyone's going to say, you should do the Bass Strikes Back Part 14. And I would say to that, that's probably not a possibility because, those bands all, I mean, you got to, we can't survive doing this shit for free, and we can't expect to make them fucking get rich either. So, but you have to take my business model for this band this time, Jason, is very simple. Do things that are special and don't overplay in all these markets where nobody shows up anyway. Sad to say, you can't just bring everything everywhere and survive in this business. It just doesn't work anymore. The thing, The cost of travel has changed. Everything's changed. So as far as bands to play with, I mean, I have dream lists. You know, I'm telling you, watching Mastodon and Gojira the other night, I was like, that would be a fucking fun tour. You know, would they bring an old school thrash metal band out? I doubt it. But you know, things like I'm very open minded. As long as they can, you know, give us enough to make it worth our while, I'm open minded to tour a lot of different things. I don't want to just say one thing, but I just can't imagine Bass Strikes Back having enough crumbs on the end of the fucking table to even make it worth our while to do it. You know, and I think, and we'll see what the demand is. If there's a big demand, then we'll supply it. If it's a medium sized demand, then we'll supply it. If there's no demand at all, we can do that too. You know,
Yeah.
but I just don't know where it's going to go. And I'm not closed minded to anything, but I just can't imagine Bass Strikes Back having any money left over to pay Forbidden what it would need to do just to survive out there on the road.
I think Judas Priest and Overkill would be
Oh,
two
there you go.
two
There you
good
go.
bands to
There you
play
go.
with.
Yeah, and me and Andy are. I love Andy Sneap. I call him the Sneeper. But yeah, now that he's a priest, I call him the Sneeper. But yeah, that'd be fucking amazing. I think you nailed one right there. You know, Priest, Maiden, classic metal bands. You know, that'd be.
Overkill, another one.
We've toured with Overkill. They're great.
Yeah,
I love their new album. I think it's fucking awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, as long as, you know, like I said, as long as they can pay enough to make it possible. You know, everyone's trying to make a buck, dude, and it's hard. Not
yeah. I
just make a
know.
buck, but not lose a buck. That's more important, right? Don't lose money.
Well,
We can't afford to lose money. I didn't come back in this to make money, and I certainly didn't come back in it to lose money. So I came back into it to make great music, and in turn, that. Getting back to what you said for the fans, I shouldn't have completely skipped over that because yes, there is that part of that for the fans, but I've never done it specifically for the fans or to chase trends or to have anybody, you know, accept us. It's like it's never been about that for me. It's always been about the music itself first and foremost.
well, I'd like to thank you, Craig, for doing this interview. We've known each other for like 35 years or something stupid. But do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
Yeah, man, get ready. You're going to get a recharged version of the band. Uh, you know, a couple of new elements are going to add a lot more energy to this thing.
Brilliant. Well,
So
sir,
I think people are going to be very happy with this version. You know, the bloody rebirth of Forbidden 2023.
excellent. Well, congratulations anyway. Good luck and keep in touch, please.
I will, man. You know how to get a hold of me, and you can always
Yeah.
send me those board tapes you were talking about. I'll give you my email address. Thank you, Jason. It was good to talk to you
You
again,
too,
man.
brother. Keep in touch. Take care, my
I'll see
friend.
you. I'll see you out there.
Yeah, cheers. Horns up, brother. Take
Cheers.
care. Bye bye.